This is the Christian Circle podcast, and you're listening to Pamela Fernandes, where we have conversations about Christian living. Here's the show.
Hi, my name is Charles Johnston, and I am a Catholic writer and blogger from Phoenix, Arizona. I've been a guest here on the Christian Circle podcast for, about a dozen or 2 dozen times now. I'm a convert to the faith from evangelical Christianity, and I really enjoy talking about all things Catholic.
So you've been doing saints with us for a long time, and today we're talking about Saint Francis of Assisi. And most people know him because of his popular prayer or hymn, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. So what about Saint Francis of Assisi and his early life?
Well, whenever we talk about, I don't know how you would describe them, mega popular saints, like Saint Francis of Assisi, Mother Teresa, John Paul II, any of these kind of like the beloved by everyone, basically. It always makes me nervous because everyone loves them for a different reason. You don't know what you're gonna, you're gonna tick off one crowd or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and everyone's got their own image they've built up of this person in their mind. So you really want to kind of, makes me nervous to talk about someone that's so well known, basically.
Yeah.
And Saint Francis is probably one of the most beloved saints in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Apart from like the original, the apostles or the Blessed Mother, I'd say probably right behind the Blessed Mother and some of the apostles. Some of the apostles kind of get the shorter end of the stick, like Saint Barnabas.
Yeah.
or there's some other ones in there that nobody really knows their name. But, like John and Peter and James and Paul and the Blessed Mother. But besides them, St. Francis of Assisi is one of the most popular saints in the Catholic Church. And for good reason, too. He founded a religious order that is one of the largest even to this day. And that was 808 years ago or 805 years ago. It's over 800 years now.
Yeah. And
they're still going, all around the world, doing great things, spreading the gospel and, doing the corporal and spiritual works of mercy.
And they were one of the fastest growing at the moment of their conception. In fact, the Franciscan order grew so quickly that it was recognized immediately, and they eventually became custodians of the Holy Land, where you visited and were part of the church, right?
Yeah, that's a funny thing. When you go to the Holy Land, there's only a handful of churches. There's some Protestant churches there. There's some Eastern Orthodox churches there. But most of the churches that are built upon the sites of Jesus' life, especially, not so much the Old Testament sites, but like the sites from Jesus' life, are Catholic churches. And then the vast majority of them are Franciscan churches. There's only one really that I could think of, because my aunt was just in the Holy Land right now with a group, and I was telling her places to go and stuff, and I pointed out to her the one church, it's called Mensa, it's in Tagba. I think it's called the Church of the Primacy of Peter, and it's right on the shore of Galilee, and there's a little table inside. Not a table, it's rocks inside, but there's a plaque in front of it that says Mensa Christi, the table of Christ. It's where Jesus prepared the fish and bread that he ate with Peter and one of his post-resurrection appearances, and where he said, Peter, do you love me?
Yeah.
Do you love me? Do you love me? 3 times. But that particular church is a Benedictine church. It's run by the Benedictines. So that's one of the only ones that I know of that's not a Franciscan church, because they're called Custodia Terra Sancta, the custodians of the Holy Land. They have custody of all the holy sites that are Catholic holy sites. I mean, like I said, there's some non-Catholic holy sites there too.
And I think the Franciscan order also takes poverty very seriously, right? I mean, they one of Saint Francis's original ideas was that they would live as close to Christ's life as possible, and so they try to take the vow of poverty very seriously. And this is quite ironic, given that he was a rich man, the son of a merchant.
Yeah, he grew up the son of a very wealthy man who was a cloth merchant in Assisi, Italy, which is an area, it's in Umbria, it's north of Rome. And he was a very wealthy man, and Francis just had this Not always. Now, that's the thing to remember too, is he wasn't always this way. You know, he wasn't like he was born a saint.
Yeah.
You know, St. Francis actually said one time, I have been all things unholy. And if God can work through me, he can work through anyone. You know, because he wasn't just like St. Augustine and St. Paul and all these great saints. One of their common threads that runs through them is before they were great saints, they were great sinners. You know, they were really good at sinning. And he was, you know, he's no different, St. Francis. So, yeah, he was the son of a very wealthy merchant. And I don't know if it was over time that he became kind of just disenfranchised with the whole materialism, you know, or if it was because of his conversion. Because at the time, you know, where he was, even in Italy to this day, 90% of people's Catholic, you know. So at the time, he was baptized as an infant. He was actually baptized as John, after John the Baptist, Giovanni. And he was baptized as an infant, so he was, you know, technically a Christian, right? But how many of us are technically Christians most of our life? You know, you can throw a big ironic air quote around it when you say Christian, because they're not really, and he wasn't either. He was no different. And it was when he had kind of this change of heart, this conversion of heart, that he really decided that it was in serving others that he really was rewarded, you know? It's in giving we receive, and it's in dying we're born to eternal life. You know, that's part of his, you know, famous prayer. But he really did just completely abandon wealth, and not in a way like, you know, like the rich young ruler was told to give away everything he owned and follow Christ. And that's what St. Francis seen himself as, the rich young ruler. So he was told to give away everything. And that wasn't, Jesus never told that to everyone, and poverty isn't for everyone. You know? So we get this mistaken idea that Jesus was against wealth. Like we were talking before we started, how some people see Jesus as a hippie. There's some people who see Jesus as this like socialist revolutionary too. You know, that was against wealth completely. But Jesus said to the rich young ruler, give up everything you own, because he could see in him what was holding him back from the kingdom. Right? It was his love of wealth. And the love of money is the root of all evil, it says in the Bible. It isn't money itself, it's the love of money. So the rich young ruler was told to give up everything and follow after him. And he couldn't do it, and he went away sad. But when Zacchaeus climbed the tree in Jericho to see Jesus, and Jesus came down and said, Zacchaeus, come down from the tree tonight, I'm going to dine with you. So he goes and dines with him, and he has this radical conversion. Zacchaeus, he was a tax collector. And the way tax collectors made their money was they took however much was owed to Rome, and then they took a little extra. And that was their pay. Was however much they could squeeze out of somebody was how much they got to keep. And so he said to Jesus, he said, I'm going to give away half of my wealth and everything I've ever taken that was ill-gotten. Like he was going to make restitution and give away half of his wealth. But he was a wealthy man, so half of his wealth would still make him fairly wealthy. And Jesus said, you know, blessed are you, today salvation has come to you. He didn't say, no, Zacchaeus, you give away all of your wealth. You know? He said he was going to give away half his wealth. So, but Francis seeing this radical detachment, not that Jesus hated wealth or hated any kind of material good, but he's seen it as a way to better serve others by being completely and radically detached from all belongings. They don't own any. A Franciscan doesn't own anything personally. I believe modern day Franciscans own their habit. They might not even own their habit technically. Like they might have to share that if they had to. And they own their psalter, you know, their book of Psalms that they pray the Divine Liturgy with. But I think that's it. Maybe a rosary. Everything else they have to share in community.
And this came from even the direction that St. Francis took. Basically, he hears this vision from this call from Christ saying, repair my church. And Christ isn't even telling him, give up your wealth or whatever. Christ is just telling him, build my church back.
Right, yeah, rebuild my church. Well, at the time, too, you got to remember when Francis is, like the time that he lived in, so it's the early 13th century, the church is in dire need of reform. There's heresy spreading throughout. The Albigensian heresy was just kind of taking off, and it was spreading all through. So that's what St. Dominic, who was kind of a contemporary of St. Francis, he comes along and he fights against the Albigensians. He was he went on the Albigensian Crusade, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's his heresy that like basically taken over northern Spain, southern France, parts of Alpine Italy. There's corruption in the church. There's all kinds of like bad stuff happening. And Francis knows, you would know objectively that it was time for, there needed to be some reforms done here. You know, there needed to be something done about this. And God tells him, he speaks him from this cross of this church, San Damiano, in just outside of Assisi, and he says, rebuild my church. So Francis takes this to mean literally rebuild this chapel. So he goes and he steals cloth from his father and sells it and tries to use the proceeds to rebuild the church, and his father finds out, and there's a big kerfuffle between him and his father. But he takes it literally as in rebuild my church, but what God was telling him was rebuild my church, the body of Christ, you know, rebuild the institution of the church, not this particular building, you know? And that's what Francis, that's where Francis was he was a reformer, but he really didn't do anything. He wasn't like the Counter-Reformation, you know, like the Council of Trent or anything like that, where they really set out to set it. He just reformed through love.
Yeah.
Through radical love. You know, love as I have loved you, love others, Christ told his apostles, and Francis did that. And that's what, it was through his radical love, radical poverty, and radical commitment to the gospel that he changed the culture of the church by inspiring others. Rather than telling them what to do, he inspired everyone to be more Christ-like.
And he never became a priest, right? He was only ordained as a deacon. Yeah.
He was ordained as a deacon against his will.
Oh.
He didn't even want to be he didn't want to be a priest. He didn't want to be a deacon. He just wanted to be a brother. Because when you meet a Franciscan, they all dress the same, you know, and they're all brothers.
Yeah.
So there's different but then there's priests that are also Franciscan. So there's Franciscan priests, but then there's Franciscan brothers, and they just live in community with the priest. They're just as much a Franciscan as the priest.
Yeah.
But they're just not priests, you know? And he didn't want to be a priest. He just wanted to help the poor. He wanted to preach the love of Christ to others. He wanted to be Christ in the world. He wanted to be the hands of Christ, the feet of Christ. You know, he just didn't want to be a priest. I don't know if he never felt himself worthy to be a priest, or he just never felt called to it. I don't know.
Okay. And for those who are interested, there's also a third order, right? So people from the laity and the clergy can be part of the third order without really taking any vows of the Franciscans.
Right. Yeah. There's third order. There's third order of a few religious communities. I've been actually investigating joining the third order Dominican myself. There's third order Franciscans. There's they don't call them third order. There's Benedictine Oblates, I think they call them. But it's essentially the same thing, a lay Benedictine. Yeah. And I think there's other ones too, probably. I don't know. Those are the three that I'm most familiar with: Franciscan, Benedictine, and Dominican. But if you're attracted to that, you know, Franciscan type lifestyle, and you wanna, you know, if you want to join in community, not in live in community with them as a friar or as a nun with, you know, the Four Sisters of St. Clair.
Yeah.
But if you want to live out that spirituality in your station in life, so as a husband or a wife or a single person, whatever, you can join the lay Franciscans. It's a great thing to do for spiritual growth.
Yeah. And they're quite invested in education, as far as I know, especially in India and the Middle East. They are heavily invested in education. They run schools, they run colleges, junior colleges, which are very faith-based.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, when I think of education-based orders, I usually think of the Jesuits.
Oh, okay.
They're the first ones. Here in America, it seems like every Catholic high school is a Jesuit high school.
Yeah. And it's strange because I think one of the most prominent Jesuits took up the name of St. Francis, right?
Right, yeah. When he was elected, I wasn't even Catholic when he was elected, but I was listening to the radio, and I was very on the outside of the church, but at the same time, like at the fringe, you know? I was just about to make the plunge. But I remember listening to the radio, and it come on, and whoever it was master of ceremonies, come out. I was listening to the news on the radio, and he come out and said, Habemus Papam, you know, we have a pope, And he said his name is, and I heard him say Francesco. And I said, Francesco?
Yeah,
And
me too.
I was thinking, yeah, Francis, there's never been a Pope Francis. I started thinking, and then the commentators were saying in English, like trying to translate it, like he's going to be Pope Francis the First. And then they said who it was, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. And I thought, because I kind of like had their whole, I had a newspaper in front of me with their whole spreadsheet, like I was watching the NFL draft, you know. And I went down, I found him and said, he said Jesuit. I said, okay, so he must have took Francis. I figured Francis Xavier.
Yeah.
Who was one of the founders of the Jesuits. I said, it must be Francis Xavier. Oh, that's cool. And then, I don't know if it was days later, we found out in his first interview that it was for St. Francis of Assisi. And isn't that strange?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a strange twist. I guess not strange, because he is, like I said, one of the most beloved saints in the Catholic Church. But, I don't know, you'd expect a Franciscan to take the name Francis, not a Jesuit.
Not a Jesuit. Yeah. And I guess it's also a reflection that there's a return to the call of the vow of poverty and sharing our wealth, and also reforming the church at the same time. Yeah,
reforming it through example. That's what Francis done. St. Francis of Assisi. And he, when his father actually went crazy after he stole the cloth to try to rebuild the church that he thought God was speaking to him to rebuild. And his father drug him before, he thought he lost his mind. And he drug him before the bishop and he was going to make him renounce his, he wanted to make Francis renounce his inheritance. And so Francis said, yeah, I'm sure. He went along with it. And he said, not only do I renounce my inheritance, I renounce everything I own, and took off his clothes. And he walked out just in his underwear and a hair shirt, which is like a penance thing people would wear back in the day. It was real uncomfortable. And some reports say that when he was outside, he walked into the woods, like he left completely. That was it. He left everything his father ever gave them, everything he owned. And when he got out to the woods, he got beat by robbers and stripped of his undergarments and his hair shirt. They took that. And so he was just walked away naked, and he was happy. Didn't have a thing in the world. Didn't own a single thing, and he was never been more happy and more free.
And I guess it's kind of similar to what we see in today's reading as well, right? The call to give up everything we fear. Like, we fear this loss of wealth, we fear the loss of our life, we fear so many things, because we love all these things. We love our homes, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I notice it myself, but I mean, not that I have not reached St. Francis of Assisi level of detachment from things. I still own things, I still like things. But I used to, before I became Catholic, and even like the first year I was Catholic, there's certain things I collected, and I liked, some nicer things. I liked having stuff. I liked stuff. And it's hard to explain. I don't like stuff anymore. I don't know if it's just me getting older now with 3 kids. They take all my stuff anyway. So I technically don't have any stuff. I have my cell phone. That's about it. I don't really care about things anymore. I don't care about stuff. I care about my family. I care about God. But I don't care about things. Like, it doesn't matter to me if I have the newest gadget or the newest, and my wife will say to me, like, what do you want me to get you for your birthday? Because my birthday is coming up right now. And I said, I'm completely happy. I'm content. And I never was content before. Like, there was always that one more thing. There was always that, you had to work real hard to get this, whatever, this new car, this new, whatever it was. And I just feel, I don't know, for the last couple of years, I feel perfectly at peace. Like, you don't need things. None of these things you chase after your whole life. And it's this Western, and don't get me wrong, I love Western society, like the good parts of Western society. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in Western society. But this, like, Western work ethic of you need more stuff. That's what life's all about, is more stuff. And it's not about trying to build a better life for your family. It's not about any of these things. It's about stuff. Like, look at the commercials you see. None of the commercials are for, it's for invest to make a retirement fund so that you can move away from your children and live in a little retirement village away from everyone, and play games as a 70-year-old. You can play games with all your old friends away from your family. It's not it's not about family anymore. It's not
Yeah.
about, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
like this weird, like, they're trying to sell us this life, but I don't want.
Mm.
And all these, like, the commercials you see for, if it isn't a prescription drug commercial, because I mean, I see them all day long. I don't know what's the deal with that. But, I don't know, it's just, I'm content with what I have. I don't, you know. And that's what St. Francis, I think my wife would probably kill me if I reached St. Francis' level of detachment where I just start giving everything away. But, you know, there really is a middle ground there, like everything in life. You know, there's the golden mean, like Aristotle would say, you know, between, I guess, being Scrooge McDuck and being St. Francis of Assisi, you know. So there is that golden mean.
And I think the Holy Spirit does the job of clarifying things as you get closer and closer. Yeah. And then
I mean, it's really, it's what's important. What is important? You know, Jesus asked, and this is a question I ask myself all the time. When John the Baptist, when Jesus comes up out of the water, he says, "Behold the Lamb of God," you know. Two of the John the Baptist's apostles turn and start following Jesus. And it was one of them was St. Andrew. And Jesus turned around after they'd been following for a little bit, and he said, "What do you seek?" He asked him point blank, "What do you seek?" And they didn't really answer, and they kind of gave a roundabout answer. They said, "Hey, where are you staying?" I don't know what kind of answer that is. You know, like they didn't, like maybe they didn't know what to say at the time. But he said, "What do you seek?" And I ask myself that all the time in, you know, in the voice of Christ, saying like, "What is it, Charlie? What is it you seek?" And really, the only thing that's important, the only thing that matters, is things eternal. You know, that's what St. Paul says. Keep your eyes on things above. The things that are eternal are important. Stuff, you know, rusts. It withers away. You know, it's nothing here on earth is eternal. Nothing, except for your soul and my soul, and going to heaven to live forever with God. That's the most important thing. And your family is also important, but things are not important. You know, and that's, you gotta really realize that. It's God does it. He shows you what is important in life and where to prioritize your time. Prioritize your time seeking after Him and seeking a better relationship with your family, and not seeking after the next electronic that comes out, because there's always going to be another new thing. You know, and it's, if you live chasing after that, it's a dog race. You know, you're never going to get ahead. It's a greyhound chasing a little rabbit around the track.
And I think you've mentioned this. We've mentioned this a number of times in many podcasts. I think every time there's a saint that is somehow associated with with poverty, we kind of mention this. I think we've said this before for somebody else as well. But what is the main legacy now of Saint Francis, apart from the education, apart from this message of love, which easier said than done. We don't really practice. So what is this legacy? And if we have to do what he did, like through love, how do we go about doing this?
Just living out the gospel. I mean, Jesus, like, we weren't told, "Hey, love your neighbor if you find a chance." You know, like, hey guys. Jesus didn't say, "Hey guys, you know, if you find the opportunity and the time, if you can fit it into your schedule, love your neighbor." You know, Jesus literally said, "A new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you." So he said, "A new commandment I give to you." So he was putting that on the level with the 10 Commandments, right? He's telling them, this is a commandment I'm giving you. Love one another as I have loved you. How did Jesus love us? Jesus loved us sacrificially until death.
Until death, yeah.
You know, death on a cross, the most excruciating, that's literally the word excruciating, comes from to be crucified. So he loved us until death. And he tells us that's our commandment, is to love one another. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard to love people that you don't think is deserving of your love. But are we deserving of God's love? You know, we can't be like the ungrateful servant or the wicked servant, you know, the one that goes out and is forgiven of his debt that he could never possibly repay, and then goes out and beats his fellow servant for a debt that he could pay back in a few weeks' time if you just gave him time. You know, the wicked servant went out and done that, and I mean, we pray it every time at Mass. Every time we go to Mass, we pray the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And we say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. There's a contingent clause placed upon our forgiveness. It's for as we forgive others. How do we forgive others? Is by loving them.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to forgive someone you love than someone you don't love.
Yeah.
Even though we're supposed to pray for our enemies, you know. So it goes, and it's, you know, I always think about the story of the Good Samaritan. You know, the Good Samaritan was helped not by the priest and not by the Levite, all these leaders of the Jewish community. He was helped by the Samaritan, someone who wasn't even part of the community.
Yeah.
And then Jesus looked and said, now who was his neighbor? You know, because you're supposed to love your neighbor. And then the one person in the crowd said, well, who is my neighbor? And so he goes into the story of the Good Samaritan. Everyone is our neighbor. Jesus expanded the definition of neighbor and people that are, you know, part of the family to the whole world, all humanity. Everyone's made in the image and likeness of God, so everyone's deserving of our love, and we're commanded to love them. So that's, I think, the legacy of St. Francis, is he showed us that not only are we failing to live up to this commandment, you know, but he showed us that it's humanly possible. You can do this. You know, it's really not humanly possible. With God, all things are possible, but a human can, through the help of God, love everyone unconditionally.
And I think it was Saint Francis who said, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible.
The impossible.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is also great at this time, because it's hard. Now we're in such multicultural churches that we tend to look down on, or we tend to say, oh, well, this church belongs to X, so this church belongs to Y.
Right.
And I think it's also harder because we keep saying we need to love people, but it's really difficult when, you know, there are issues within the church itself. So it's good that you mentioned loving people, but how do we do it?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question.
What does Pope Francis say about it?
Well, St. Thomas Aquinas said love is an act of the will. You know, it's willing the good of another. So, loving your neighbor doesn't mean having warm and fuzzy feelings about them. It's not the same as love. Like, there's different kinds of love in the Bible, too. There's agape, there's eros, there's philios. There's different levels of love. It's willing the good of another. It's saying to someone that I wish you the best. I really do have the best intentions for you. I hope that God blesses you. It's going out there and it's seeking the best for them. It's willing the best for them, and it's wanting the best for them. That's what loving your neighbor means. You know, and then if they need help, obviously, you know, that's what, you know, James says in the letter, in his epistle. It says, what good is it if someone's laying cold and I tell them, you know, be warm and well fed, and then walk past them without giving them my cloak? You know, so it isn't going to do anyone any good if they're laying on the street bleeding from a head wound, and you walk by and say, I wish the best for you, and you keep on walking.
Or I'll pray for you. No. That's even worse.
Right, I'll pray for you, and you keep on. No. If someone's obviously in need of help them.
Yeah. And this could make it a little inconvenient, right? Like when I keep thinking about the Good Samaritan, I'm thinking this guy was going somewhere.
Right.
He had something to do, and he still stops. He makes time, and he does this thing. I would have been thinking, oh, I've got some place to go.
Right, I've got places to go for people to see. And also, he took the wounded man into a hotel, and he put him up in the hotel, and he pays for his room.
Pays for it.
And says, anything extra, I'll put on my tab, and I'll pay you when I get back. And so he put himself way out there. And like I said, the Samaritans and the Jews were like enemies of each other. They did not get to say they didn't get along will be an understatement. If you read Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews, there's one part where he tells a story about I think it was after the birth of Christ. I think it was after the birth of Christ, but it was before Pilate became the governor of Judea. So somewhere around like maybe 15 or 20 Samaritans came down to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and they brought with them human bones in their pockets, and they scattered them all over the Temple Mount to defile the Temple Mount, because they knew that would defile it, and the Jews would go crazy, and they did.
Yeah.
And there was almost a war between them. So Jesus is telling these people who didn't like Samaritans to begin with that, hey, you know those guys that defiled our temple? Yeah, they're your brothers too.
Okay.
You know, so that really wouldn't go. It's like, imagine walking into New York City in 1941 and telling them how we gotta love the Germans and the Japanese. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
these are people we're literally enemies with right now, and you want to tell us how we're supposed to love them.
So it does mean that it's going to get inconvenient, that loving our neighbors is going to cost us to a certain extent.
Oh yeah. Look at the great martyrs of love, you know, like Maximilian Kolbe.
Yeah.
It cost him everything. And like St. Damien of Molokai, you know, look at him. He went out to the leper colony. He loved the unlovable and the untouchables of society, and he died of leprosy.
Yeah.
You know, and then St. Francis of Assisi himself, he died at age, what was he, 44, 45?
Yeah, 44. I think, but he did have the stigmata, didn't he?
Yeah, he had the stigmata. He got the stigmata, but I mean, that isn't what killed him. Just, he was ill from living life on the road as a beggar. I mean, think about homeless people. People that are homeless don't live that long generally. You know, not as much as someone that's well-fed, well-housed, clothed. It's hard on the body all the time.
Yeah.
And St. Francis, like, pretty much lived as a beggar for many years. And it just took its toll on his health.
Anything that we should, other than this, that you think we should pick up from St. Francis of Assisi? How about his love for the environment?
Yeah, there's that, and there's also his boldness. He wanted to be a soldier early on in life, and he abandoned. He was going on, I don't know if it was a second or third crusade he was going on, and then he ended up turning around because he got told by God, like, a little bit outside of town, this isn't what I want from you, basically. And he turned around and came back. But later on, after he founded the order, and after after it was kind of an established, he had a few hundred followers and everything, he decided that he was going to go on crusade after all, but it was going to be a different kind of crusade.
Yeah.
A very different kind. He went straight to Syria during the Fifth Crusade. He went straight to Syria, and he walked right into the tent of the Sultan during the war. And they actually thought he was crazy, so they let him in. Because here's this barefoot man in beggar's robes, walked all the way here from Italy, and he wants to talk to the Sultan. The Sultan let him in, and he preached to the Sultan and tried to convert the Sultan. And supposedly the Sultan told him, I would convert, but both of us will be murdered. He said, to your beautiful religion, he called it a religion of love.
Okay.
And, he didn't convert the Sultan, and he didn't end the war, but he was willing to put his life on the line to bring about peace. Because, I can't think of anything more dangerous than walking into the Sultan's camp and trying to personally convert the caliph of the Sultan of the Caliphate. Like, imagine walking into Raqqa, Syria right now and trying to convert Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. It wouldn't end well for you, but it, worked out for him.
Yeah.
But because of that, he got, the Franciscans got safe passage to go to Jerusalem. And then from there, the Pope gave them the custody of the Holy Land for all the pilgrim shrines in Israel, like we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. And what else?
In everything, one of the things about St. Francis that a lot of people really like you said about the environmentalism, is he saw God in everything, and not like a pantheistic kind of way, like walk over this tree and worship it because it's God,
Yeah.
But he saw God in everything because God created everything. So in all things, he saw an image of the Creator which made all things. It's a beautiful way to look at things in life too. Is everything? We know that everything we have in life itself is a gift. And St. Paul said that in Him everything moves and holds together and has its being.
Yeah.
That everything is held together. Everything's held together by the will of God.
Yeah.
So at any moment He's continually creating the universe, and it wasn't just a one-time event. God created the world, in the beginning, but at every moment of our existence, he's holding us in creation. You know, he's holding us in existence. And St. Francis seen this. He saw this in a way that, you know, I don't know if nobody had seen it before, or if it's just he was I don't know if he was the first to see it this way, or if he just really popularized it. But seeing God in everything around you, you know, and that's why that canticle, you know, he sung the canticle of the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you sing it as just like, you know, because I've heard people singing it as just kind of like this ode to nature, you know, but it isn't. I mean, nature without God is just, it's just plants and animals. You know, it's just plants and animals. It's nothing really special.
Yeah.
But the idea that God ordered all things the way they are and created them and set into motion this whole system that is nature points to the Creator. You know, like St. Thomas's fifth argument, the teleological argument, that all things point to the Creator because everything is a contingent being that points to the only necessary being in the entire universe, which is God. And so St. Francis seen that in a beautiful kind of way, but not in a way that would make him like a pantheist, like, you know, some hippie that was out worshiping a tree.
And if you actually look at the trees, they even say, like, even the trees hold up their hands in praise to a maker that has created
Right,
them.
yeah. Because everything's been created by God, and he recognized that. And I mean, we all know that, and even like, there's never been an atheistic society, so even primitive societies, back in like the Stone Age, you know, or anywhere in the world that you look at, everyone knew that there was something greater than them.
Yeah.
They knew you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's everything points to something greater because we're all contingent. We all, if we weren't created by our parents, we wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
If that tree wasn't planted, it wouldn't exist. But everything exists, and why does it exist? And everyone knows that there's some point to it, except for modern atheists say, oh no, the world's pointless and they're all going to die, and that's it. It's a very hopeless ideology, you know? I don't know why anyone, it would take a lot of faith to be an atheist too, to think that all of this just happened.
Yeah. And
for no reason.
one of the things that you said was, I think, I don't know who said this, but I was reading the other day and it said, true humility is in knowing that everything that we have does come from God. Nothing we have is what we've achieved on our own. Everything has come from our Maker. Yeah. And one of the things, I moved here and there's this place I saw the other day. They have a board which says yoga for babies. And I was just telling my mother they're starting yoga for babies and toddlers. And the one thing she said was everyone is seeking something. We inherently know we have to worship something. We want something. We're seeking something. But we don't want to admit that it is God himself.
Right. So that's what this whole, you know, in America, they think that like anything Eastern's cool now.
Yeah.
You know, and they're seeking after all these. And I feel like saying, you know what the original, you know, Eastern religion is? Christianity is the Eastern religion.
Yeah.
You know, it was started by a Jew from the Middle East.
Yeah.
But a Jewish man who happened to also be God. But yeah, they think that because it's like you said, everyone's seeking something, and everyone's seeking something to give their life meaning, and something that's higher power than themselves. But Christianity is just too Western, and it's too mainstream. You know, it's like this hipster idea that anything mainstream can't be good. Well, math is mainstream. Yeah. Math's pretty good. You know, I feel like saying, you know, like all these things that we take for granted.
Yeah. You
know, like your automobile's pretty mainstream, but they don't like mainstream things. They want to try something that's cutting edge and hip, and so they get into all like these like, and the more obscure something is, the better.
Yes, exactly.
Like now, yoga's too mainstream, so now people's doing like even more obscure. No, but why don't we look for things that are true rather than just things that are hip?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing yoga for babies. I actually seen a sign for that today too, and it was and they have. You can get your yoga, you can have your baby and your dog doing yoga together at the same time. And it's a hot yoga place too, so they crank the temperature up to like 120. It's crazy. But those same people, and there's also, I know there's a lot, I'm on a couple of like local, you know, like the local community Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And every so often someone posts something like, there's bad energies in my house, I think it's trying to kill me. Can somebody, you know, it's bad spirits or bad energies, and the comments are amazing. People's telling them to do everything from rub pistachios all over their body to do jumping jacks in a circle while chanting the national anthem, all these different things. But then if you say, well, why don't you pray about it, or maybe call a priest, I think you need an exorcism, they laugh at you. So my suggestion's crazy. You're trying to get rid of demons with almond oil.
Yeah.
But, how is oil going to affect a spiritual being? If you just stop and think about it for a second, you think that your house is infested with evil spirits. It might be. It sounds like it. Like some of their descriptions, there's doors slamming, there's weird words. Okay. I think you have a demon in your house. Call a priest. It's pretty sensible.
Yeah.
2 + 2 = 4. But that's too mainstream. They want to do something that's more spiritual but not religious. It's like that whole thing, I'm spiritual but not religious. And it's just a symptom of our culture where everything traditional is looked down upon. And everyone's trying to find those new cutting edge things. They're all going to rub the
I would even replace cutting edge by crazy.
How is an essential oil going, that's a natural, it's something that's material. It can affect an immaterial spiritual being. And I mean, we use oils in our tradition. We use oil, holy oil, and we use holy water. But it isn't the water, and it isn't the oil. It's the fact that it's imparting the blessing of God in it. That's what makes it powerful. You splash someone with water, it doesn't do anything. Holy water, and then it sizzles, then you run away and call a priest. But it isn't, and you say that, but that's what I always, whenever I see things like that, I think, like, these people will rub crystals all over their body.
Yeah.
But if you even suggested praying to God about something, they laugh. And why? Why is my suggestion more ridiculous than the crystals? Like, how is that? I don't understand it. I can't put myself in that mindset, though. I really don't comprehend it.
Yeah. But it just goes to show how Satan has won over so many battles, because we are going further and further away, and we cannot admit that we need God.
Yeah. So the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem.
Yeah.
We have a spiritual problem in America.
Yeah.
But in all the Western world.
Yeah,
but
all
nobody's
over.
willing to admit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Americans, it's where we live, so it's what we see mostly. But Western Europe's even worse.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, like we've talked about the Poles a few times. The Poles are doing great as far as their church is concerned, and if we could really, I think we need to import more Poles to do a population exchange with France and Poland or something. But then that might just damage Poland. So
yeah,
I don't know. But like Eastern Europe is doing great as far as I know. I've never been to Eastern Europe, but from what I've heard, and then even places like Iraq. Now, Iraq, the Christian population is down way down from what it was like 10 years ago. They've been killed and massacred and everything. God bless them. But I talked to a priest from Iraq, a Chaldean priest, and he said, pray for us, but don't pity us. Because our faith is stronger than it has ever been, and we're praying for you in the West. And I was like, wow, it really convicted me because, look at what they're going through, and they're praying for us.
Yeah. But it just goes to show how global we are, right? We're not just in one place or the other. We're all over. We're all supporting each other, and I think that's the thing. The beauty of the body of Christ is that it works together.
Yeah, it's universal. Yeah, that's what I love. That's one of my favorite things. Like I said about the Catholic Church is, I go to a Byzantine parish every so often in Arizona. I'm really trying to branch out and experience some of the other 23 Eastern churches, but even just in the Latin Church, we have all around the world, and not just in Western Europe and North and South America. In Sri Lanka, I think them churches that were bombed in Sri Lanka were Latin right churches. In India, they have the what is it called?
Malabar,
Syrio-Malabar, right? Yeah, and then there's a Syriac Catholic Church and a Chaldean Catholic Church. It's everywhere in every country around the world except for maybe North Korea. There's a Catholic Church of one rite or another.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. I think it's one of the biggest testaments to the Catholic Church that it is universal. It's everywhere. It's for all people.
Any books that you would suggest reading about him?
Not off the top of my head, no. I would suggest to look up the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. Because
Yes,
I don't know
yes.
how it started, but there's like 20 different branches, I guess you'd say, of Franciscans.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's the original ones. OFM is the Order of Friars Minor, and then there's the Capuchins, and there's a bunch. I think are Trappist Franciscans. I don't know if they're Franciscans or Benedictines, but there's a bunch of Franciscan orders, and there's ones that were started in the South Bronx.
Yeah.
In was it the 70s? I think.
Yes.
The Franciscan Friars of the Renewal.
Yes.
And they actually have a mission in Phoenix, not far from me. I've never been able to make it over. It's on an Indian reservation. But I've heard great things about them, and I follow them on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
But
They're on
in a lot of
YouTube.
major
They're on
cities.
YouTube as well, right?
Yeah. One of them, I want to say Father Elijah. He's a singer and plays the acoustic guitar and stuff. Sings beautiful songs. But they do great work with kind of the poor and very spirit-filled people. So I've looked them up and see if they're, if you're listening, then look them up. They might have a mission or a parish close to you. You can go visit them.
And they live very austere lives. Like I have a friend whose spiritual director is part of that ministry, and she says they sleep on the floor. Like that's a bit extreme, but they have very austere lives.
Extreme poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's their charism.
Yeah, and if any of you young men are listening and are interested, just take a look at them. Maybe your vocation is out there with the Franciscan Fathers of the Renewal.
Serving the poor with the Brothers of St. Francis.
Thank you, Charles, for coming to our show again and for doing another one of our Saint podcasts. We hope to have you again in another. All right.
Find me at nowthatimcatholic.com. So page facebook.com/CatholicConvert2016. And you can find my book on Amazon. It's called The Beauty of the Mass. I'll walk through the central rite of Catholic worship. And I'm also on Twitter. I try not to be so much these days because it seems like I have to go to confession every time I go on Twitter and fight with somebody. So it's the world's largest echo chamber, and it's crazy.
And you do speaking engagements as well, right? You just finished your last one.
Yeah. Okay. I done a one-day retreat at my parish, and I spoke at a conference in Texas. I guess that was about 4 months ago. But yeah, I do. I guess I'm doing speaking engagements. I always had a fear of public speaking, but I felt like God was kind of forcing me into it. So rather than waiting for the whale to swallow me like Jonah, I just said, "Okay, fine, God, you win."
He always does.
Yeah. So. Yeah, he always does. So you might as well, that's the lesson to learn. God's going to get his way, so you might as well go along with it rather than fight it.